Hey y'all. So episode three, right? In episode two, we talked about what we understood to be as emotional intelligence, and hopefully you were able to garner some insight to your own emotional intelligence, and that help you propel, understanding your partner's emotional intelligence as it relates to the love, intimacy, right, that you have within your relationship. Now, the emotional capacity of understanding emotional intelligence really lends credence that we are able to really connect with one another in understanding who we are and understanding who our mates are. And I think that's important for us to understand as not just men or women, but just as in general, in whatever capacity of life we are in work, life, relationships with friends, um, family, whatever the scenario may be, we have to be able to understand how our emotional intelligence and their emotional intelligence align with one another so that we can build better relationships with one another, because it doesn't make sense, right, for any of us to have a relationship with each other that is just so toxic that okay, and maybe not as toxic as I'm stating, but just not one of the relationships that we want. Like, hey, listen, that we want to reach out to, because there's just always some type of pull and take. And so emotional intelligence gives us the opportunity to learn more about who we are, and hopefully, right, give some insight to that person as well. So that's where we are today, right? Now that we've dealt with tried to determine what love, emotions, and intimacy is in episode one. Episode two discussed the emotional intelligence about it. And now, episode three, we're here to talk about love, right? Being in love and what love means. And how do we manage the two throughout the relationships that we keep? Now, of course, love and being in love is ideally referring to individuals that you're in relationship with, a non-platonic, right, relationship, some type of physical contact relationship with another person, regardless of what that relationship may look like. So we're trying to determine what love is, right? And what does being in love means. And for me, right, it's really about why do we even care about having strong relationships that's centered around love? I mean, why have them, right? Because we want somebody that we can grow old with. At the end of the day, we want to be able to share our lives with somebody, because you, like me, I think I'm pretty dope, right? And I hope that you feel the same way about yourself, because at the end of it, you are the only person that has to truly be happy with who you are. Now, if you're some jacked up person, then this probably ain't the episode. This probably ain't the series, quite frankly, for you. Unless you're really trying to make a change in your life. And that change can only happen if you're really open and honest with it is of who you are as a person, be it man or female. Because what we're really looking for is to be a positive impact in someone's life, and more importantly, the person that we decided that we want to be our person. And so that's what we're talking about, love, right? And is it right? We all look at it, right? My grandmother, she described love as having an affection, a deep affection for somebody who you can look at them and they know what that look means, right? And while they may not know specifically, if I look at you like this, right? Many of us, you can infer a lot of things, right? But the idea behind it is that we're so connected to our partner that they understand us even without us having to say a word. And isn't that what love really is supposed to be able to do, right? I heard not heard, I saw something recently that really kind of struck the core of me. You know, it was about a lion, being the king of the jungle, but how his strength or his power was wasn't the only thing that gave him his strength. His strength, while he has power, and we can infer this being male, female, or however your relationships are, right? Just male, female for this, right? All point and purpose, um, is the king of the jungle. He's a powerful animal. He's a powerful man. He's a powerful being in his environment. However, his strength really comes from the lioness, and the woman, for that matter, in her ability to really stand with him, right? Through right or wrong, and even the fact that she checks him, right, within context when he is out of line. And I think that was, I personally thought that was pretty powerful, because that's exactly what, when I think of what love is, what we should be doing for each other, right? I don't have to accost you in public. I don't, and I don't have to do all of those things to say that you're right or wrong in any capacity in public. But I still have to stand with you and defend you when you're right or wrong, and still let you know that, hey, I got your back, but you were wrong in that scenario, or you were right in that scenario. And I think that's what love kind of is, right? Now, when we talk about, family and all of those things, then, love plays a different, right, has a different role as it relates to how we are with family and all of those other things. But at the end of the day, I think love as a whole encompasses the fact that I am here standing with you in the midst of whatever, and I'm going to do that because I love you. And I love you enough to tell you when you're right and when you're wrong. But how can we get to the next level? What do we need to do to correct this? Or how do we not, have this mistake happen again? At any event, that's what I think we should be doing in relationships, is having those critical conversations that give us the ability, right, to do that. And it only comes when we're able to truly emphatically love somebody with the type of love and passion that's fit for kings and queens, right? In the essence, that's who we are. um you know then you have the idea of being in love, right? And I think a lot of people associate being in love and loving someone, and I think it's used interchangeably. And while it probably can, especially in the earlier parts, of your relationships, and while I think that being in love never, right, if you love somebody, you never truly stop being in love with them. I mean, it's in the word itself, being in love. I'm in love with you, meaning I'm constantly doing something that shows that I am here with you, not the daily routine things, not I'm gonna wash the dishes for you, or we're gonna, not for you, but I'm gonna wash the dishes, or I'm gonna clean the clothes, or I'm gonna cook the dinner, or I'm gonna tend to the children, or I'm gonna this, or I'm gonna that. Those things happen because you're a family, and you're a unit. But when you get to what being in love really means, is I am actively engaged in showing you how much you mean to me. That doesn't mean I'm buying you things on a consistent basis. That doesn't mean that I'm doing all of those things. I'm buying purses, or I'm buying you shoes or watches or jewelry, or new trucks and cars and all those toys. All those are ancillary things that happen in relationship. They're great, right? I'm not denouncing them at all. But that doesn't tell me that I'm in love with you. That doesn't connect with you on a deep. Well, I mean, maybe some people does. Um, but for the majority of us, stuff doesn't tell me you're in love with me or you love me any more than laying next to me in the bed and cuddling with me, or throughout the day sending me messages saying, hey, listen, I love you and I just want you to know, right? I'm here for you and I'm willing to do, and I'm here to do whatever we need to do, right? To make our relationship a sustained relationship. It looks like I got something white on my eye, but it doesn't. I thought maybe I didn't wash my face, but I know I did. And I got lotion and baby all on. That's right. Because, yeah, we can't have that all on the screen, right? But at any event, right? So being well, what I call in love means that, again, I'm striving on a daily basis, being compassionate, and all those things that the Bible describes, what being, what love is, and when you get married or in the process of dating and courtship and all of those things. Love is kind, love is not boastful, love does not brag, love does not hate, and all of those things, right? That's the biblical probably definition of what love is, right? And so being in love means that I am actively, and again, this is Dominic's opinion, I'm actively doing all of the things that's necessary to make sure and ensure that you know where I stand in my affection for you, right? So, there are tons of movies out there, and black culture or regular movies, but for me, I won't say that I'm an overly emotional person, but I will say that I understand who I am a lot more than I did when I was in my 20s, of course, we all did, and probably even into my 30s, um, and beyond to some degree, probably. I mean, hell, we all are still learning something about ourselves, and if we're not learning something about ourselves, then we need to take a hard look at it, because there's always something more we can do to improve ourselves. If you have a job and you work in whatever career field you are, there's always some form of continuous improvement, right? And we look at continuous improvement, and I'm gonna go back to the movie thing, but we look at continuous improvement in the workforce as doing something to help the organization be better, right? Flip that to your life, your relationship. What am I doing on a continuous basis to make my life and our lives work better, right? That's continuous improvement in your relationship. That's what being in love and trying to redevelop who you are as a person, man, female. And if you're redefine who you are in your relationship, or or what your relationship is, you do continuous improving things that help move that needle forward, right? Regardless of what it is. If it's reading a book, if it's going out on dates, if it's spending more time with the kids instead of maybe on games, or if you're spending time with the wife and y'all have or husband and y'all just have y'all time for y'all to go do whatever, whether it's taking a day to go get some ice cream, or just giving yourselves some quality time to reconnect with one another, even if that reconnection stays at home and giving foot rubs and back rubs and all those other things that come with relationships, right? I don't need to tell you about all of that, because hopefully, right, that's what you're doing on a consistent basis anyway. And if you're not, I highly encourage you to do so, because and not just, again, I've said this before, but not just for the sake of sex, right? But for the sake of connection, the sake of reconnecting, and being emotionally vulnerable to the person that you're with. And it's so critical to have that feeling, right? So back to the movie, bit. In Black culture, we have all these movies. We have Love Jones, we have, the Why Did I Get Married, and all of those films that depict, right, at the end of it, in many cases, a love story, right? Where there's, the beginning where there's all, everybody's coming together and it's all peachy cream. Well, it may not always be peachy, but in the middle, there's some type of drama. But at the end, there's always love, right? And throughout the picture, you can kind of see how it plays up. Well, that's life, right? Essentially, and regardless of what part of our lives that we are, that's how it is. One of my favorite movies, and if you haven't watched it before, I would highly encourage you to watch it. Um, One of my favorite movies, and it's not going to be in Black culture, but that's okay because we all are different, right? But it's Message in a Bottle. It's with Kevin Costner, right, and Robin Penn. And Kevin Costner, I won't give you all of the story, but essentially, he's married, he has a wife, and she's going through some type of illness. I want to say it was cancer, um, and she dies, right? And the love that he had for her so much, right? He had so much love for her that it almost broke him until one day he met this other young lady, because they started finding messages, right, in a bottle, right, that he would, while his wife was still alive, he would throw these bottles with messages in them out to sea. And so wherever they were, right, the messages washed up in New York City or Chicago, I want to say, Chicago area. And this reporter, she wanted to write about this love letters, right? These, because and find this guy. And ended up falling in love with him, of course, because it's just a touching story. But it comes to find out, like, his wife, she of course knew that he was writing these letters, I think, or saw him writing them and throwing them in a bottle. So she had actually written one as well. But the point of all of that is to say that when you love someone, right, you truly, truly, truly feel like there's nothing you're not willing to do for this person. Um, and we pray and we hope that we never have to go to an extreme measure, um, as a protector, right, from a protection perspective, right, for our families. Um, but we're willing to do that because of they have to succeed, right? They have to go on beyond us, and the love that we share in relationships or with one another really gives us the power, right, to be able to do whatever, right, to do all things and anything. And yes, while love is bestowed upon us from God, I believe, right, and if we're truly loving one another, then that agape love, right, that love is magical. That's all I can really think about it. It's magical. So, it's taking care of one another, without them even knowing that we're taking care of them, and without wanting something, right? Hey, thank you for doing that for me, right? It's not even about any of that, right? It's we do it so that we can know that I have I'm doing everything I can from my perspective that I can to push our family or our love further and beyond the level that it is right now. Um, because I love you, right? There's no other reason other than the fact that I love you, right? And that's where we are, right? Love is able to again connect emotionally, right, to others using those nonverbal cues, like I said with my grandma. And I found their love, my grandparents, my maternal grandparents. I didn't know my paternal grandparents. But I knew my maternal grandparents, and the love that you saw with them, it was. We'll talk about it in detail in other episodes. But it was just so much love that you saw. And again, they're an older couple as well, right? So it was very different times with them than it is in with my uncles and aunts, and even with my cousins and the generation that I'm in. And it's even different from the generation beyond under me, right? Or that's not those Gen Xers and so forth. So we all have different interpretations of what love is and what love look like. But what does it really? Well, I won't say what it means to you. You have to determine what love means to you and for you. But it's not abusive. It's not hateful. It's not. It's the very opposite of all those things I said from a biblical perspective that we've all heard before. It's the very opposite of that. So if it does not look like, and while it may not absolutely have to look like the biblical contextual meaning of what love is, because I mean it was written a long time ago, right? And the world has changed in many ways. But the consistency in that is do no harm, right? This is like medical professionals. Do no harm, right? Do no harm. That's it. And if we can look at each other and say that we are absolutely and emphatically not doing harm, um, and we're doing things to help us get better and be better, then I would say that's whatever that looks like to you in your relationship. That might be what it is, right? Some misconceptions of love is, people say that, being in a relationship and loving someone or being in a relationship is 50-50. I don't necessarily agree with that. While I don't disagree that some people can look at a relationship and say in order for us to be, 100%, we both have to give 100%. I mean 50%. I think, and this is Dominic's perspective, I believe we have to give 100%, right? Um, we don't go to our jobs or we don't have interviews and they say, well, you know, how sure are you about this job and your ability to perform this role? And he's like, oh, I'm 100% certain that I can do this role, right? Because I have this skill. I've done Excel for 30 plus years. I've been an HR manager doing this. I've been this. I've done this, and here's how I can lend my experience to the job itself, right? We don't go to interview saying, oh, I think I can do about 50%, right? Because they're gonna say, have a great day. But why do we do that in relationships, right? Why do we say, oh, I'm gonna give 50%, they gotta give 50? Why? What? So you only want to give me 50% of who you are as a person. What 50% am I getting? Am I getting a good side? And this is just Dominic's opinion again. Is this the good 50%, or is this the other 50% that shares 25% good, 25%, I'm gonna do what I want to do and you can't really tell me what to do. But that other 50% is gonna be all other kind of stuff. Why we can't just have 100% of who you are, right? To in the relationship again, you're giving 100% to everything that you do, right? I'm not saying that if you give me 100%, you can't give nobody else 100%. That's just who you are, right? You are you. 100% of who I am, I'm going to give that 100% in whatever it is that I'm doing, right? I'm going to give 100% of my job because that's what my family needs me to do to make sure that I'm providing for them. I'm going to give 100% to my family because that's what they need to raise our family, our children, so that they can understand what love is, what they can understand what a commitment is. They can see the love between my spouse and I. I'm gonna give 100% to my spouse to be the best man that she can that I can be for her. And I hope, right, that that's exactly what I'm getting in return, right? Because if you're not getting that 100%, then what are we doing it for, right? What are we really doing it for, right? So, a lot of people believe, that if you love them, then you should show me, right? Some even believe that love should look the same. It doesn't, right? Love does not look the same to everybody. And the way I express love to you does not mean that that's the very same way that you're going to express love to me. Um, and that goes back to, one of those, it's not a self-help book, I don't think, but maybe it's classified as that. Um, where it's the love languages, right? It's the 5 love languages, right? That's just kind of been depicted and understood as to what an individual's love language is in relationships. So when we look at those 5 love languages, right? If we are, let's say my love language is quality time, right? And my partner or spouse don't know that my love language is they have no clue, or it's just a couple that has no clue about what 5 love languages are, right? And for me, right, not even knowing what those love languages are, I really like spending time with my partner, right? And whereas my partner may think, or my spouse may think, that my love, that what they like, what I like most is new things, right? New Jordans, new cars, or I find value in gifts, or I find value in them telling me, those words of affirmation, right? Without knowing again that it's called considered words of affirmation, right? Or the physical touch piece, right? If they think that those things are what my love language is, or the things that I care about most, and it's not even close to it, then there's friction there, right? And so now flip it to me trying to, give my spouse or partner, right, significant other, the same quality time that is mine, but theirs is actually gifts, right? They like having new things, and they like, not because they're materialistic or any of those things, but just because that's what makes them feel appreciated with all the things that they may be doing in their day to day. And that's fine. That's nothing wrong with that. I mean, doctors have decided and put this in a book to say, hey, these are legitimate things of ways people feel appreciated. So who the heck is Dominic to say against that, right? So I find that if we are not, right, learning what those love languages are, then we could absolutely be miscommunicating our signals, and relationships could potentially break down. In previous relationships with me, again, I didn't realize and maybe I knew that I really like spending time with people, because again, that's just the nature of who I've always been. And I like spending time with the person that I'm dealing with. But what I didn't know, right, is, or maybe not even cared to even think about, right, because I thought that spending time was what everybody wanted to do. I didn't realize what that person's love communication or love language was. And so I'm sure that I missed the mark a lot of times on the relationships that I had previously. And so understanding who you are and where you are now, who you were, right? Who you are and where you want to go or where you're trying to go is important so that you can again continuously improve on the person that you are to the person that you really, really, truly want to be. And even if you're not there, right? We don't have to be 100% in the same place that we are. But what we can be is moving toward that goal or just moving toward positivity on a day-to-day basis. Not that I have to be messed up in the head or messed up in the heart or any of that, but you're just doing things that consistently, right, drive that needle or drive that train forward and being better in your relationship. So, you know, it's just interesting, right? And how we think of love and what we think love is and all of those good things. And it's just fascinating how much we thought we knew or how much we think we know about love and being in love and relationships and connecting with people that we really don't know. And I'm not, again, I'm no professional, but these are just some of the things that I have witnessed in my own life, in the relationships that I've had, and in some of the exploration of my own understanding of some of the things that I'm like, wow. Well, as tough and as hood as I was, and and sometimes I can be a little, I can be a little testy, right? Um, but we don't always know the right thing to do, and we don't always know the right thing to say, and so we're always trying to find better things to do in order to be better, right? um I was listening to, you know, on TikTok, and I'm sure you all, somebody, well, many of us probably got it. And she was like, um, if your man, if you calling your man, and this can be, of course, used universally, um, if you're calling your man or woman and they're not picking up, they're not answering the phone, or they're not texting you back, then it's obvious that they miss you. So pull up on them, and it was extremely funny because while it was definitely her being silly serious, it was really cute, and that kind of showed like, oh, that's that puppy love, that's that in love stage. I remember one time, heck, my wife, I used to um text my wife, right? She would drive for work from time to time, or she drove maybe 45 minutes to work, where and even though I had the same amount, maybe, right, of time to drive for work, um, I would always, hey, did you make it in? Did you get there safe? Whatever the thing it may be. And it became, for me, it was more so I just wanted to check to make sure she was safe, right? Because early in the morning, there are deer, drunk drivers, accidents happen regardless of drinking or not, flat tire, whatever the scenario may be. And what I would do, not necessarily that I was doing it, but what I would do is, I would not give her the opportunity really to give. So, I would text her maybe 45, 50, maybe an hour, right? To get in and just say, hey, checking in on you, whatever the scenario may be. Did you make it into work yet? And maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes may go by without a response. Ooh, I hit her again, maybe, right? And then I'll call, and for me, immediately my mind would go to did something happen, right? Is something happened to her? So I would immediately become afraid, right, that something bad may have happened. And thankfully and fortunately, it was never the case, right? It was her getting settled in for work, right? Which we all do. And I say that to say sometimes our love can be so, I won't say demanding, but we expect people to do to us what we do for them. And that's not it. Love to everybody doesn't look like that, right? She would check on me from time to time, right? But it wasn't, a consistent thing. And that doesn't make me feel bad or make me feel like she doesn't love me. Everybody isn't the same. However, that love that she does have, she trusts that if I could, right, that I would, make sure she knew something was wrong or whatever the scenario may be. But she had trust in me that this ain't the first time that, I'm driving, or it's the first time she's not driving. She's been driving long before me. She's been going to places long before me. She spent a whole career in Japan and Germany and Turkey and all those other places. And she didn't have me checking up on her. So we just have to do better at understanding, again, what love looks like in our relationships so that we can be better participants in how we love and how they get love and how we receive love and all of those other things. Just a quick note on some, medical, right, things is, I was, just looking, because I do research topics and I read books and I try to talk, or not books, but I look at articles and things like that help, not only give me some concrete, information, but books that or articles that are so out of my norm to understand what love, what our brain is going through when we think about what love is. And so one of the things that I found, of course, and you guys may know about it, and I've heard of it, but I didn't know how it truly played in the aspect of what love does for us in our body and from a mental capacity, is oxytoc is no oxytocin, right? So yeah, I was gonna say oxycontin, but no, that's not it. That is not the reason you love. Okay, it's not. It's not oxycontin, right? Oxytocin. All right, oxytocin, right? So that's one of those hormones within your brain that kind of releases those love, right, endorphins and all of those things. It helps physical touch, um, gratitude, gives you the opportunity, communication, and so forth, all those things. So physical touch, of course, is those simple things, right? Hugging, kissing, cuddling, all of those things help increase the level of love within the relationship. So what does that mean? Oxytocin, something in your chemical makeup in your brain that when you are hugging, physical touch of some capacity, whether it's rubbing a knee in an emotional way, whether you're kissing passionately, pecks, whatever the scenario may be, releases a hormone that wants to increase the level of love that you have with the person that you're in relationship with. Wow. So you're telling me, Dominic, that the more that I passionately or just in a physical way embrace and engage with the person that I'm with, the more love I'm going to feel with this person? I'm not saying it. That's what the experts are saying. And they're experts, right? So love more, hug more, touch more. And more than likely, the more you do that, right? I think some people may call that foreplay, right? The more you do that throughout the day, the more you, but please don't think that it always has to lead to, right? But the more you do that, the more the love within you and your mate begins to build, and your relationship becomes stronger and stronger. And before you know it, you'll be giving the advice to somebody in your circle that may be having a rough time. And they can do the very same thing, right, to their relationship, and hopefully become better managers of their love within the relationship. But gratitude as well, right? The things that you're excited about and within your relationship, express those things, right? Talk about what the future may look like to you, and or what y'all want the future to look like. One thing me and my wife go about now is, we've both had houses and have sold them. And for me, the future looks like an RV, right? But for my wife, the future looks like this, house that we can raise our children and grandchildren in. And I think that that could be absolutely fantastic too. And from time to time, I see houses and things, or I see aspects or aesthetics of houses that I'm like, that would be a good addition. Like, I saw this one amazing pool, like it had a grotto, like it was super nice, y'all. Like the pool area. I mean, the house was nice too, but the pool, I was now I would buy a house to give me a grotto. If I can get a grotto, now if they start making RVs with grottos, then we might have to back off of that. But at any event, but you talk about what the future looks like to you guys, and because I mean, for the most part, you don't want to get 20 years down the road and have very different vision, and end up separating because you want one thing or you want another thing, and there's no common ground. But also, that gives you the ability to connect, to ensure whatever, that you're on the same path. Like you guys you're talking the same, you're acting the same, you have the same things in mind, you have the same goal. You're very different people, but you're on one accord. And isn't that what we all want? Absolutely. Communication, right? It gives us the ability to communicate better about what we want, who we are, where we're going, and all of those things, from family, finances, trips, food, whatever. It gives us that ability to really connect deeply. And these are all the things that I think whether it's being in love or love means in a relationship. And that's it. That's the bottom line, right? We all look for love in relationships and expect them to represent some level of output that we offer, right? Yet, that's not always the way love manifests in our relationships, right? So, what do we have to do? We have to have trust in one, we have to have trust in one another. We have to have commitment in one another, with one another, and we gotta have communication, right? If we can mix all three of those things together in the perfect harmony, the balance to finding the connection of what love, emotions, and intimacy is, happens. It does. And that's what I love most about our relationship, right? With one another. And even my friends. Because everybody plays a role in your life, regardless of where they are or who they are, whether it's, guy friends, girlfriends, spouses, partners, significant others, every exes, right? Future exes, joke. They all play a role in our lives. And whatever that role may look like, it is incumbent upon us to manage the level of expectation within it, right? And know that whatever it is that we're doing together, where we're going, it has to be centered. It has to be centered on love. And there you have it, folks. Episode 3, what love is, being in love, on Fractured, understanding the emotions, intimacy, and love in your relationship. This is your boy Dominic. Peace, love, and happiness. I love y'all. Keep loving on each other.